Hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe, and today we are going to look at the complete current roster for our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. And we're going to try to predict the final 53-man roster. Well, that's going to be a futile endeavor, right? I mean, we don't even know if these are the players that we're going to have entering training camp. I did a video like this right after the draft, covering the 90 players the Saints currently had. And immediately after posting the video, we signed 3 more free agents. So we're going to pull up the new current roster, both offense and defense. And from this new list, we're going to determine who our starters are going to be. So right now, we're going to pull up the offense. There's your complete list of offensive players as it stands right now at 3 p.m. on Monday, May the 6th. So, looking at the quarterbacks, I think that Haener and Rattler are going to end up being our backups. I think that's the way it's going to be. Having Kellen Mond and Nathan Peterman throughout the offseason and in the training camp is fine, but I don't think you risk putting Haener or Rattler on the practice squad. So, that's the way that's going to work out. At running back, we have Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, Jamal Williams, and I believe that's the only 3 we're going to carry. Jordan Mims, James Robinson, Jacob Kibodi. If any of those guys can prove to be an essential special teams player, then perhaps we carry a 4th running back. But typically what we did last year is we suffered with a lot of injuries at running back. And we were very limited in the number that we actually carried on the active roster. I mean, at all times, there was one game when we only had one true running back, really, going into the game. So I think when the numbers crunch happens, the Saints will likely carry 3 running backs, and then they'll, of course, have 1 or 2 on the practice squad. But the Saints always have a connection with some free agent out there, whether we go grab Tony Jones Jr. again off of someone's practice squad, or whether we sign Darrell Williams again like we did last year, some option like that. I believe, the Saints will always have the bridge extended to multiple running backs, in case something happens. And hopefully Jordan Mims and James Robinson have picked up enough being on our practice squad where, they can be counted on in case of an injury. But for right now, I think Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, and I'm going to say Jamal Williams. And they'll be the 3 that'll be on the final roster. Jamal Williams is a proven veteran when it comes to pass protection, and he's been in the system for a year now, so, he has that advantage. Somebody's going to have to blow this team away in training camp for them to cut Jamal Williams loose, I think. But you never know. We'll see. At fullback, I don't think Adam Prentice has what it takes to do what is going to be required in the Clint Kubiak system. Now, if Kubiak wants to just have his fullback run blocking and pass blocking, and that's not quite what the Shanahan system is, then Prentice might end up being the guy. But if Kubiak's system looks more like Shanahan's system, I think Xander Horvath will be our guy. And he does have to get better at blocking, but he is a versatile back that can run and receive way better than Prentice. So I'm leaning towards Horvath as our fullback. At tight end, I'm certain we're going to keep Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau. Taysom Hill is going to be a part of this team, whether we consider him a tight end, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, whatever. Taysom Hill is that X-Factor guy, and I believe he'll make the team. So does that mean there's room on this team for one more tight end? A true tight end, and we can consider Taysom as this X factor everywhere, a second fullback, a fourth running back, a fourth quarterback, or a fourth tight end, yeah, that could be it. That could be what we do. But I'm going to say that Dallin Holker will make the team as well. I think that his talent's too good. We put him on the practice squad. Someone's going to grab him. There's no doubt about it. I believe that's the situation we have with Holker. Much like Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler at quarterback, the talent's too good to just throw on the practice squad. Now, we've done this before with players that I didn't think we should have. Tony Jones Jr. comes to mind. And the linebacker, Jalen Smith, last year. Same thing. So if the Saints do that and put Dallin Holker on the practice squad, yeah, we might as well just kiss him goodbye, same as Lucas Kroll last year. So I think we're going to make room on the roster for Dallin Holker, and we'll keep 4 tight ends: Johnson, Morrow, Hill, and Holker. At wide receiver, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, they're not going anywhere. A.T. Perry is a 6th-round draft pick and showed a lot of promise last year. It doesn't mean he's guaranteed a spot this year. I'm hoping that A.T. Perry shows a lot of progression. But I'm going to go ahead and include him to say that for sure, Olave, Shaheed, and Perry. I think Cedric Wilson is a good player. I think he's a valuable veteran. I think he can fill multiple roles, and I think we're going to keep Cedric Wilson. As of right now, when I look at the rest of these receivers, Cedric Wilson's the guy that makes sense to me as a safe, secure pick. I don't know if we're going to try to bring back any of our free agents. We had a couple of guys running around here last year that were pretty productive at the end of the year. Keith Kirkwood and Lynn Bowden Jr. If either of those guys come back, then, I could see one of them being kept instead of Cedric Wilson. But for right now, I'm going to stick with Cedric Wilson as number 4. And then I got to lean towards Bub Means because he's a draft pick, and he is a stereotype of a guy that we want. Big receiver who can play the slot and big enough to play outside, athletic. I think Bub Means is our number 5, so do we keep 6? I think we will. I think the new kickoff rules are going to have teams emphasizing on holding on to more than one returner. And Jermaine Jackson just might be that guy. We gave him a big payday to come be an undrafted rookie for us. And same as Dallin Holker at tight end. We paid him a lot of money to come be an undrafted guy for us. Now, the money doesn't mean anything. We did that with Abram Smith a couple of years ago, I think, and ended up putting him on the practice squad, and somebody grabbed him right away. Doesn't guarantee a roster spot, but for right now, I'm leaning towards Jermaine Jackson. I don't like his size. I don't know how he projects as a wide receiver on the offense, as somebody that you have to keep. I mean, Shaheed showed good progress as a receiver, and he was worth keeping. Before him, it was Hardy/Harris, and he showed a little bit at wide receiver, and so he was worth keeping. So can Jermaine Jackson, who promises to be a great return specialist, show anything at wide receiver that makes him a bona fide number 6 wide receiver on this team? I think whoever we keep past Olave, Shaheed, Perry, Wilson, and Means is going to have to be a special teams guy. So St. Brown is a good run blocker, and he's got size. Stanley Morgan is a good special teamer. I think Mason Tipton is a really good wide receiver, though he's an average size. That undrafted guy has a chance of making it as a wide receiver on this team. And Kyle Sheets has the size, much like Shaq Davis. We've got this 6'4" guy here that, might end up being a good, big receiver. He's got something that not a lot of receivers have, size. Sheets is one of those guys that's going to end up on the practice squad, and somebody's going to swoop in and pick him up, just like the Eagles did with Shaq Davis. So for right now, wide receiver, I'm leaning Olave, Shaheed, Perry, Wilson, Means, and Jermaine Jackson. And now the hardest part is the offensive line. I'm going to predict that Ryan Ramczyk retires. So he's not even going to be on this list. And this is my projection. So I think for certain we're going to keep Trevor Penning, Nick Saldiveri, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, Taliesin Fuanga. I think those are going to be your 5 starters. I think your primary backups are going to be Landon Young, who's going to be your swing tackle, and Oli Udoh, who can play either side, tackle or guard. I think those 2 are definitely going to make it. Okay, so that's 7. I think we're going to keep at least 9. So I'm looking at a guard that can play center as well, and perhaps a guard that can play tackle as well, or a center that can play guard. Whoever the last 2 are going to have to be, versatile. And Oli Udoh is that guy. He's the versatile tackle guard type, and Landon Young is a good backup tackle at either side. So how do you go about it? Do you keep Justin Herron, a veteran who's a tackle, could play guard? Do you keep Shane Lemieux, who is a guard? And I think Lemieux can play tackle as well. You've got Tommy Kramer, who can play guard or tackle. And I think he's even played center for the Saints. And then you've got Sincere Haynesworth, who is the undrafted rookie from Tulane, who's a center but played guard as well. So that's where the trouble comes in. I'm certain that you keep Oli Udoh and Landon Young as backups. But who's going to be the next 2? Now, we have Tommy Kramer now, but I was kind of partial to Max Garcia, and that's the one we kept on the active roster last year, and he's a free agent right now. So Max Garcia is a guy that we could bring in here late in the process, as well as, of course, Andres Peat. And you bring either one of those guys back, and, Garcia is a center guard. Peat is a tackle guard. And that would be the same type of player as Tommy Kramer, I think, a veteran who is versatile. So, yeah, I'm stuck here on the offensive line. But we're going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to pull up my final prediction for the offense now, just the players we're keeping. And this is the way I'm looking at it. Derek Carr, Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler at quarterback. At running back, you'll have Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, Jamal Williams. Fullback's going to be Xander Horvath. Your tight ends are going to be Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, Taysom Hill, Dallin Holker. Your wide receivers, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, Cedric Wilson, Bub Means, and Jermaine Jackson. And at offensive line, very tentatively, Trevor Penning, backed up by Landon Young and Oli Udoh. At left guard, Nick Saldiveri, and I'm going to edge out Kyle Hergel, the undrafted guy, as a backup guard. Center will have Eric McCoy, and I'm going to throw in Sincere Haynesworth. If we have an option between Tommy Kramer, who can play tackle or guard, or Haynesworth that can play center or guard, Hergel that can play center or guard, that's the only thing right there. That's what trips me up. I think Haynesworth or Hergel are both good enough to make the team, but do both of them. So maybe, perhaps, you keep Haynesworth and Tommy Kramer, or you keep Kyle Hergel and Tommy Kramer, and that way you have another guy that can play tackle. And like I said, in Tommy Kramer's place, could also have Andres Peat or Max Garcia if we re-sign either one of them. And you can't forget Justin Herron and Shane Lemieux, who are veterans who we signed post-draft. So they may be the offensive linemen that complete the list here instead of Max Garcia or Andres Pete or Tommy Kramer. So for right now, I've got Kyle Hergo and Sincere Haynesworth thrown in the mix because Udo and Young can play tackle. You have yourself a couple of center guard options as well with Hergo and Haynesworth, and then you still have tackle covered with Udo and Young. But there could be some changes there. So that's my final prediction for the offense. Let's pull up the complete list of defensive players now. And yep, my last video I did not include Will Harris because he got signed right after I posted the video, but here's that complete list again. And I think the hardest one to determine is the complete defensive back list and the complete defensive line list. So I'm certain for defensive line, we're going to keep Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, Chase Young, Isaiah Foskey. Those are the four I know we're going to keep at defensive end. Jordan, Granderson, Young, Foskey. Now, you think we're going to keep Turner, which would make 5 ends, and Tano Passanio would make end number 6. Do we keep 6 defensive ends? It becomes a numbers game at this point. So who's more valuable to this team? Tano Passanio in his last year or Peyton Turner in his last year? I think Turner might be the better overall player, but like I said, if he stays healthy, it's a miracle. If he has a great season for you, I still don't think you want to sign him to a fat new contract. Turner hasn't done enough in 3 years to justify a new contract. I don't care if he gets 16 sacks this year. It'll be the first time he stayed healthy all year. And then it'll be this great year. And then what do? You're kind of like in a situation with Hendrickson, where do you pay a guy when he just shows the 1 year of production? Well, yeah, we shouldn't have got rid of Hendrickson. But the thing about Hendrickson is he wasn't hurt the whole rookie contract he was with us, unlike Turner. Now, I'm leaning towards Ryan Ramczyk's going to retire, and I'm also leaning towards Peyton Turner's not going to be on this team this year. That's where I'm going. It becomes a numbers game, and I think we're going to trade Turner. And I think we're going to get a 6th-round pick for him from the Broncos, something like that. A team that needs an edge rusher that wouldn't mind taking a young guy who's a 1st-round draft pick in the final year of his rookie deal, so he'll be cheap. You give up a late-round pick, I think it can happen. Either that or we just cut somebody right up. And, to me, I don't think that's Foskey. That's either Passanio or Turner. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Turner doesn't make the team. We have 5 defensive ends, and it's Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, Chase Young, Isaiah Foskey, and Tano Passanio. At defensive tackle, Saunders, Shepard, Brzee, and Boyd. That's your 4, and that's the way it's going to be. Kyler Bowe may end up on the practice squad. That's where Jack Heflin and John Pennicini have been. So Bowe's really going to be fighting for a spot on that practice squad. I think since Christian Boyd is a draft pick, and since he provides some run-stopping ability and some strength, I don't think Baugh and Heflin and Pennicini have. So my final 4, defensive tackle, Saunders, Shepard, Brzee, Boyd. Looking at linebackers, this one could be pretty easy. Pete Werner, Demario Davis, Willie Gay, for sure. Your draft pick, Jalen Ford, is going to be our backup middle linebacker. And DeMarco Jackson is going to win the 5th linebacker spot, and I believe Nepi Sewell is going to be linebacker number 6. Now, when the season starts, Sewell might not be ready. So if he's not, we're going to have another guy until Sewell comes back. And Isaiah Stallbird looks like a guy who's a tweener safety linebacker. He could provide a lot of versatility and special teams production for us. And we'll have to see how that works out in training camp. Anthony Orji, who's been with the team a year already, has that kind of advantage. Monty Rice and Kaliki Hudson are both veterans who haven't had a chance to show anything for the Saints yet, but they are special teamers, really good special teamers as well. So who do you keep? You keep Werner and Davis and Gay for sure. I think Ford for sure. And then do you keep 5 linebackers or 6 with the new special teams rules? People are they're saying that you might want to keep extra linebackers. So I'm going to say we keep 6. And I'm going to go with Werner, Davis, Gay, and Ford. And then Jackson is number 5. And Sewell with the eventual number 6. But until Sewell comes back, we keep Kaliki Hudson or Monty Rice. I think that's where I'm leaning. I'm going to go ahead and say Hudson and Rice are going to battle for that number 6 spot. And both of them end up losing out to Sewell once he comes back. All right, the secondary is the hardest thing. We know we're going to have, if we don't trade Lattimore, we're going to have Lattimore, Adebo, Taylor, McKinstry. That's your cornerbacks. And I don't know if we keep a 5th cornerback or not. It depends on how many safeties we keep. So for sure, if we don't trade Lattimore, I'm going to say we don't. And we keep Lattimore, Adebo, Taylor, McKinstry at cornerback. Rico Payton would be the 5th guy because I think he's going to beat out Hicks, Wright, and Jean Charles. And he'll be one of the last cornerbacks standing. I've got some faith in Rico. At safety, this is where it gets tricky. We're definitely keeping Tyrann Mathieu, Jordan Howden, Jonathan Abram. JT Gray is the great special teamer, and Ugo Amadi was on this final roster last year. He gives you the versatility of playing cornerback and safety and can be our starting nickel. But we bring in Will Harris, who has starting reps as a safety, as an outside corner, as a nickelback corner, a slot corner, and the guy's good at special teams. Will Harris is kind of like the guy that's supposed to compete with Ugo Amadi, but I think when it's all said and done, we keep both of them. And JT Gray might be the odd man out here. If we only keep 4 cornerbacks now, I think we're going to keep 10 total DBs. So if you keep 4 cornerbacks, you're going to keep 6 safeties / cornerback types, right? So Lattimore, Taylor, Adebo, McKinstry. And then at safety, Mathieu, Howden, Abrams, Amadi, Will Harris, and one more. Can JT Gray still be that valuable at special teams to be that 6th safety? Or can Millard, Bradford, or Lawrence Johnson show something this training camp? I've got Millard Bradford circled here. If JT Gray doesn't make the team as our 6th safety, then it's because he gets beat out by a guy like Millard Bradford. But let's pull off this big defensive roster and let's just pull up who I predict as the starters. And that's the way I'm looking at it. Cam Jordan, Chase Young, Carl Granderson, K-Pass, and Isaiah Foskey. Defensive tackles, Nathan Shepard, Brian Bresee, Colin Saunders, Christian Boyd. Your linebackers are Pete Werner, Nephi Sewell as the eventual backup, Demario Davis, Jalen Ford as your backup, and I think Ford's going to be our middle linebacker once Davis retires. So I'm putting Ford at middle linebacker. I think he gets the green dot if Davis can't play, and Werner stays at the will. And then Willie Gay is going to be our starting Sam, but he's going to get playing time at the will behind Werner, even when Sewell gets back. And DeMarco Jackson's going to be a good special teamer, and he's played all three linebacker spots as well. So Gay would be our backup middle linebacker or will linebacker if something were to happen, but I've got a lot of faith in Jaylan Ford. I drafted him for the Saints in probably 60% of the mocks I did. He's just the perfect player to get in the 5th round. Versatile enough to do it all. He's a great special teamer regardless, but no, I think he's going to win that backup middle linebacker spot because I think Ford's got the green dot potential. And then that DB room, it's crazy, but for right now I'm going with Lattimore and Adebo as our starters, Taylor as a nickel, and McKinstry as a nickel. Ridiculous. Hopefully one of them is good at it. And in starting safeties, Tyrann Mathieu, Jordan Howden, Jonathan Abram. You got Ugo Amadi, who can play nickel, Will Harris, who can play nickel, and JT Gray, our gunner special. All right, so that total gives you 51 players. Now, wait a minute. You need 3 spots for your special teamers. So we have 51 players. Number 52 is going to be Zach Wood, our long snapper. And number 53 is going to be our punter. Now, is that going to be Lou Hedley or Matthew Hayball? I'm going to go ahead and give the job to Hayball. I think he's going to beat out Huntley. And he's going to be player 53. Well, that leaves one more player, kicker. But there's no more roster spots. Actually, there is. Charlie Smith is one of the international players, so he's not going to count against the 53-man roster. Let's pull up the offense and the defense right next to me to finish this video out. And yeah, there you go. 51 players right there. 52 will be your long snapper. 53 will be your punter. And 54, your kicker, isn't going to count against the 53-man roster. So do I really think Charlie Smith is good enough to beat out Blake Grupe? I don't know. But I think if it's close, you'll take the international player and that extra roster spot any day. And yeah, if Grupe ends up winning the job and we need that extra roster spot, well then, you know, you're talking about dropping either a linebacker or one of your safeties or one of your wide receivers. Yeah, I don't think you want to go into the season with less than 9 offensive linemen and 9 defensive linemen. So, all right, that is my video. That is my prediction for the 53-man roster. And naturally, this roster will see turnover going into training camp and throughout training camp. So the pieces may be different. We'll do another predictive later on when we're closer to the preseason, when we know who we're dealing with. And, you know, even after the 53-man roster gets set and you're going into week 1 of the regular season, you often see other players getting dropped and added. I mean, right out of the gate. I mean, it always happens. You're never, ever done with the roster turnover in this league. I'm Joe. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos about the Saints. Like and share the videos. Subscribe to the channel. It's free. Share the content. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?